Welcome, Atijendi. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Ndahai Manuel, and today we have a special guest, Mark Hochstein. He's a journalist who mainly focuses on the situation of security in the region. Mark, welcome, Atijendi. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Hi, thank you.
So let's start by understanding the situation in the city of Goma in eastern DRC. How is it the situation there, especially after M23 declared that they have intentions to liberate the city?
Okay, the intention, I see it now, and I didn't follow up on the last couple of hours because I had to come here. And I followed up late last night, and I checked this morning what happened. What I see is that there was heavy fighting in the area around Sake and a little bit up to the road towards Goma and Lac Vert, and that many people died. There is reports came out that a number of MONUSCO soldiers died, that 3 or 4 South African soldiers died. Yesterday, day before, a Congolese general was killed on the road to Goma. It's not very clear how this happened. So, and if there is killings like that and deaths and people falling on the front line like that, the fighting must be heavy. I saw also that, and it was confirmed to me that FRDC moved tanks to the front line, heavy artillery, but M23 declared that they were going to take Goma, and I think that we have to take them seriously now. I think there is a very high probability that they will indeed march on Goma in the next couple of days.
So how do you think M23 will reach their goal? What strategies do you think they will deploy to capture Goma?
I mean, it's very funny to see how easy it is to lure the FRDC coalition always in the same trap. M23 holds positions, the FRDC counterattacks, they allow them to advance into a kind of a trap.
Within their positions.
What we call in military terms an envelope. They're surrounded partially, and M23 hits back. The FRDC runs, flees the scene, etc. And M23 is following them and advancing like that. That's what they did in Lubero. That's what they did in the Rutshuru Plain. That's what they did also a couple of days ago, a week ago, in Masisi. And this is also what they did in Minova. And we see that the fighting is getting more and more intense. If you look at the number of Burundian soldiers and FDLR that are being killed, it's incredible. I mean, people are dying now on the front line like flies. I also hear that M23 took a number of casualties, but not as many as their enemies do.
And given that M23, after declaring that they plan to capture Goma, there was an anticipation that this will be a very swift operation. But as it seems, M23 seems to have taken a little bit of time and wait. Why do you think this is the case?
I think it's very smart of them to temporize. First of all, I have to say that the current course in the events also comes as a surprise to them. I think their strategy was to take Minova, to move on to South Kivu, to encircle Kavumu, to put pressure on Bukavu, which I think that in the near future Bukavu will also be attacked or be taken, and then pump up the pressure around Goma. I also hear that they reinforced some of their positions in the Kibumba area, so they wanted to put pressure on Goma, but it's all going very fast, and they're surprised themselves. This is what they tell me, that it's going so fast. So this is one thing. Now we see, and it also came as a bit as a surprise to me that they declared yesterday or the day before that they would march on Goma. I think this has to do with the aspect of a little bit of psychological warfare, because the M23 is aware of the fact that taking a city like that is not easy, and that things can go anyway, and that the things can get very, very slippery. Especially with an army like FRDC that has a reputation, it happened many times in the past. If they withdraw, that there is looting involved, killings, stealing, rape, etc. But that's not only it. Now they have FDLR in their ranks, who have a reputation of fighting back using civilians as a shield. Niatura, and then all these these Wazalendo gangs of young people that have been equipped with machine guns, but are basically uncontrollable. So they will be pushed into Goma. They will be trapped there as rats in a corner, and things can go any way. So this is what I'm worried about. I wrote an article about it yesterday, warning people for what can happen. I knew they were going to walk into Goma sooner or later, and probably also what I hear, Bukavu is becoming their target, because if they take the two cities, it will be very difficult for any military force to drive them out of the Kivus, given the logistical problems that would cause for them. So I think that after the negotiations broke down in Luanda with the Congolese government that kept on refusing to talk directly to the rebels, and frustrating the Rwandans that they had to talk for the rebels, that's and also frustrating the Rwandans that were always accused of supporting this, between brackets, terrorist movement M23 by sending Rwandan troops. So at the end of the day, it became useless to talk to Kinshasa, and people decided to take things in their own hands to become stronger in the field, and to put the Congolese government in front of a way of no return, fait accompli, as we say in French. We are there now. I think now they're going to take Goma. When, how? I think it will happen soon, but I don't know exactly when.
Do you think the Congolese army and its allied proxies have the capabilities to actually fight against M23 advances into Goma?
They don't have that capability, and I think they put their last hope on MONUSCO troops, who said MONUSCO declared that they're fighting alongside FRDC, the mercenaries that are on the spot, and the South Africans. I think they're doing most of the shooting, the shelling. As far as I know, South African troops are not involved in, I don't know whether they will do that. MONUSCO, a number of them died yesterday or last night or this morning. It's possible that they are, but they also think that they will start thinking twice about what will happen next, because M23 warned them. M23 came out with a statement saying, it was more or less like saying that, okay, if you fight alongside FRDC and the FDLR, we will fight you. There will be no pardon. So this is what they did in the past. Also with the Burundians, they told the Burundians, look guys, don't take it personal, but if you fight with the FRDC, we will consider you on the same level. We will consider you on the same level as the FDLR. And a big number of Burundians died. Also FDLR, a big number of them died. I mean, the official figure for the Burundians, I think it was about 170 killed in action, but we know that the figure actually was much higher, according to some good sources that I have. It was more like 300-400, with hundreds of them wounded, and the rest fleeing back to Bukavu, where they have been left on their own in front of the border, because Neva said that deserters will be executed. So I also saw this morning that Burundian troops are moving into Bukavu to defend that city. So it has become a real mess, which is a bit frustrating for people who follow up on the whole thing, because the international community and the Congolese have been warned several times in the past that this could happen.
So given, because the death of General Chirumwami has already been confirmed, do you think it will have any way to weaken significantly the Congolese army?
I mean, it's already a primaire, it's, I say, it's I've never seen before that a high-ranking officer in Congo from the Congolese army died near the front line. Okay, that was the case of Amadou. Amadou, 9 chances on 10, was killed by his own people. We hear also now that there is a possibility that this general was also killed by his own people. It's not very clear how he died, because he was in the proximity of the UN base in Bambiro and the FRDC base there. So, and he was killed, he was nearly on the road. We have information about that. I don't know what's true. It can also be that M23 was shelling the area and that he was killed, but he was hit by a bullet in his head. So that means that he was probably killed at close range. So 9 chances on 10, it was not the M23 that did that. It's possible, but I'm just thinking about it. But I think that this is important, because it might scare off other superior Congolese officers. They might start thinking twice. But it's not important. I think to look at what's going to happen, you have to look at the big picture. This guy was a general. He was kind of governor of North Kivu. He knew what the risks were going up to the front line, just like the same as we journalists. We go up to the front line, and we can also get killed. So I don't think it's so important. I think we have to focus on what's going to happen the next couple of days. When you see that yesterday and the day before, the Congolese army, FRDC, was sending tanks up to the front line. We saw heavy artillery going up to the front line. They already withdrew from Bambiro, where they had artillery posts. They withdrew to Lac Vert, and if you know the area a little bit, these are hills beside the road from where they shoot. I think what will happen now, and it's in a way easy to forecast what will happen. The M23 will allow FRDC, etc., to advance into the following trap they're making ready for them, so that they can push them out, kill a number of them, and follow them. And I think by that time they will move on to Mugunga. But the fact is that they're hesitant to walk into the city of Goma right away has a reason. When I talk to them, they're very well aware of the fact that things can go terribly wrong. that the whole situation can turn into a bloodbath that might be provoked by the FDLR or the FRDC or just simply by the chaos that will be involved. And if they're not smart and if they move too fast, they can get the blame for it.
Yeah. Do you think they've declared their intentions quite early before they make the right preparations?
That's not up to me to say that. I mean, that's their call, that's their decision. I think the moment is ripe, military-wise, to do that, because their strategy was to move to South Kivu, and that surprised FRDC. And as you know, there is not a lot of MONUSCO troops present in that area. Okay, there's some mercenaries on the airport of Kavumu, which is situated at about 25 kilometers from Bukavu. So it's easy for them to move to that zone. I hear that they already have recce units in Kalehe, in the north of Kahuzi Biega. So they're sniffing out the field in order to move in more troops. So they took Minova, they cut the road between Goma and Bukavu. So now the only way out for people in Goma, or the only way in, is by the lake and by plane. So which are both ways that can be cut off by the M23 in 5 minutes.
If they wish to.
If they wish to. So I think the strategy was to put more pressure on Goma, to move to Bukavu, to take Kavumu, and to provoke a quiet implosion of both cities, so that Congolese dignitaries, high-ranking officers, and so on, and radical FDLR would be able to flee the city, because it's these guys who can put the fire on the fuse to instigate a lot of violence there.
Okay.
So then it would have been easier to walk into Goma, because I think that the majority of the population in Goma, if I talk to them, and of course in Kinshasa, I saw this morning a guy from the Société Civile on Twitter saying that they would fight the M23. I'm convinced that the majority of the people are convinced, are tired of the war, and they would not be against M23 taking over the city. So just if that would mean that there would be peace and that security would be brought back to the city, etc., and that especially there would be not a lot of violence while taking the city.
Okay.
Because it happened over and over again in the past that while taking a refugee camp or a city, that the FDLR put fire on the fuse and provoked killings. That's their strategy.
Yeah.
And they have no way out. They cannot flee into Rwanda. Now they can still flee. They can flee over the lake, or they can take the plane. But there is no way out for them.
They have fewer options.
They have fewer options. They're pushed in a corner. And you know what happened with rats that are under threat and being pushed in a corner and have no way out. They can become really, really violent.
Yeah. So if M23 finally takes Goma, what will it mean for its strategic goals and especially for its position in the region?
It's very simple. I mean, M23 now for 2 years or 3 years nearly has been trying to negotiate. It all started in 2013 when Makenga withdrew to Uganda after having been promised by the international community and the UN that the problem of the FDLR would be addressed and that there would be negotiations so that the refugees would be able to come back from Rwanda to their home villages in Congo, etc., etc. That never happened. they were always refused negotiations, while it was promised to them to start with.
Yeah.
So, in between, while they were fighting the FRDC started 2-3 years ago, they always said that they were open for negotiations. It was always refused. There's Kinshasa. For Kinshasa, the war in Congo, in the east, always has been a side maneuver to cover up other problems of corruption, of all kinds of things that go wrong on government level in Kinshasa, because you know as good as I do that this government was not really democratically elected, that it was a deal that was made with the international community to put Tshisekedi in the place where he is now, to allow the international community to continue to trade minerals with Congo. So all that was covered up by this war. In the meanwhile, there are dozens of militias in Congo, but most of these in the east of the country were incorporated into the FRDC. So, and then we end up in this mess. So 2-3 weeks ago, I think when I talked to some of the leaders of the M23, they said, okay, and they told me that off the record, we have been trying to talk with them for a long time. They refused. So now we will take things in our own hands. And I think what they want to obtain is getting into a very strong position to start negotiations once they take Goma and maybe also afterwards Bukavu.
So if finally Goma falls to the M23, what is the worst case scenario on both sides, both M23 and the Congolese side?
The worst case scenario is that the taking over of the city ends in a bloodbath that will not be instigated by M23, because this is normal course of the events. They fight for their cause. They don't want to be, the opposite party doesn't want to talk to them, and they try to reinforce their position. The worst case scenario for M23 is that it will end up in a bloodbath, and that with all the propaganda that people like Patrick Muyaya are pumping into the sky, they will be accused of the atrocities that took place in Goma. This is the worst scenario. But for the Congolese army and the Congolese government and for Congo as a whole, the worst case scenario is that the Kivus will separate from Congo. Although I think that this is a very radical statement, it will not come to that. M23 is telling the locals now in the villages they occupy that they want to set up their own administration, their own security, that they don't want war. They talk to the other ethnical groups in the area. I hear also that a lot of elders of the other ethnical groups are not averse to M23, because they see that with Tshisekedi and with the FRDC, talking is not possible any longer. So I think that we will end up having Kivus that might position themselves much more independently from Kinshasa.
As a state or as a federal?
Not as a state. That would be really, for Kinshasa, the worst thing that can happen, because if that happens, that could have a domino effect on the rest of Congo, where you have other areas. Me personally, I lived for 2 years in Bas-Congo. I know that the the public opinion in Bakongo is really anti-Kinshasa. Katanga might split off, etc., etc. So, but I don't think it will come to that. I think that the international community will not let that happen. So, but the big mistake that was made by the international community, that it positions itself as a referee in this conflict, but a referee that is taking part in the conflict by allowing the FRDC to shelter and to re-equip the FDLR, to equip young gangs of youngsters, of young people to become Wazalendo, to defend the country, to pull in mercenaries, etc., to make a deal, a geopolitical deal with the South Africans to bring in South African troops, because the South Africans did it. This was for 80% done just to piss off the Rwandans. Because
so South Africa really didn't have a reason to do that.
Because the relationship between South Africa and Rwanda is not that good on the political level. Their collaboration in Cabo Delgado is also not good. So
it hasn't been successful, I think.
Please?
It hasn't been successful.
They lost a lot of face there, and they're losing a lot of face now in and around Goma, because they've been there now already quite a while, but they haven't been doing anything. So just like MONUSCO is fighting now, because that's the only thing. They're just following orders, and the mercenaries, I don't know. But all these groups have been warned the last couple of days that if they fight, they risk to die, and this already happened this morning or last night. You see what happens.
So how do you judge the reaction of international community to the declaration of M23 to liberate Goma?
I think I saw a short reaction of the UN telling the M23 to withdraw and to stop fighting, which is, it made me laugh, because now at once they start to talk about a final solution. I mean,
after these years,
the final solution. I mean, I'm a little bit weary of that expression, because that reminds me of something else that happened in Europe during the Second World War. But I mean, they have not done anything all that time to bring the two warring parties together. So it's very easy for them to say and to condemn now the M23, knowing well that it is because of the stubbornness of the people, of the leaders in Kinshasa, that we arrived at where we are today. So that's very important to know. I see things like that. This is my personal opinion. I can't go to Kinshasa anymore. I cannot go into Goma because they will put me in jail, because they consider us as propaganda tools of the regime here, but which is not the case, because we have been discussing things sometimes also with M23, and they didn't like everything we wrote. So we have our own opinion. We see what we see, but we're also humble, and we can also be wrong. So it's very slippery terrain.
We are coming to the end of our conversation, but one more last question. Do you think there is still any sort of possibility for resolving this conflict in a peaceful and diplomatic way?
I think as we talk now, it's too late.
It's too late?
I think for the time being, yes. I mean, if you see how the UN behaves, instead of positioning themselves as a referee that is neutral and telling both parties to cool down and not starting to help, it's like they're giving red cartons to the M23
Yep.
While they're feeding doping to groups like FDLR to be able to win the war, they lost completely their credibility. So, and if you see that now, and even, I see now that Tshisekedi might try to set up a meeting with the UN Security Council, blah, blah, blah. He's shouting for sanctions. I don't think it will work. Of course, nobody knows how the Americans are going to react, but because with a clown like Donald Trump, everything is possible. The Europeans, I think they're embedded in that old narrative the Congolese government is basing itself on. So I don't know. So I don't see, because of that, because again, things could have been different if they would have listened earlier. So in fact, it's their mistake that we are where we are now.
Okay.
If there is going to be violence in Goma, if the war continues, it's their mistake. Because again, as a referee in this football game that is called in this football place that is called the Kivus, they favor one team, and they discredit the other team. So I think the team that is being discredited now has had it with that.
Okay. Mr. Mack,
Yeah.
thank you very much for finding us time for this great discussion, and we hope that next time when we want you again, we will find you.
I hope that my forecast is not too negative, because, man, I've had it. I've been covering this region for 30 years. I've been witness of the worst massacres possible, and things like it, and it's happening again.
We hope this is maybe the last time it happens. Thank you very much, everybody who was tuning in. This is Igihende. We will be back soon.